everyone to today's webinar. This is being held by the Farm Business Resilience Program. This program is jointly funded by the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund. The New South Wales DPI has partnered with New South Wales Local Land Services as part of delivering this program. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. I wish to extend that respect to all First Nations peoples and acknowledge their strength, resilience and accomplishments. Hello, I am Margot Weeks. I'm Project Officer for Local Land Services and I'm based in Gunnedah. My partner and I have a combined sheep and cattle property between Manila. So we sort of understand, like, the trials and tribulations that everyone goes through, sort of having enterprises on the land. I'm so excited to have Rebecca Fing from House Paddock Consulting here today to do her business direction webinar. Rebecca will cover business directions, goals, strategy, planning, and most importantly, how we balance all of those things in our busy lives. So let me hand it over to Rebecca. So everyone, please enjoy our next little while together. Ask lots of questions, and thanks very much, Beck.
Thank you so much, Margot. And I have to lead with a little bit of a disclaimer that, of course, on all days of that it could happen, today my neighbour is renovating. I have a little office in the main street of Gundawindi, and my neighbour is the pub, and the pub is undergoing renovation just as we run into arsenic week of recording and webinar delivery. So for that, I'm very sorry, and I hope that my audio holds out for you and the interruptions are limited. Just by way of a little bit of housekeeping, as Margot said, this session is made possible through the Farm Business Resilience Program, through New South Wales DPI and the Local Land Services team through the Future Drought Fund. So we're very grateful that they have provided the support for us to come on and have a chat to you today. Everyone has come into the session on mute, and we do ask that you stay on mute just to increase the clarity of the call for everyone. I also welcome you to put your video on. The only reason I usually say that, if your connectivity will sustain it, is because I don't know about you, but if I find myself on a webinar on mute with no video, I'm usually coding my bass in the background. So what a bit of video action does is hold us a little bit accountable and maybe keeps us on track. So that's a challenge I do put out to everyone. That being said, I fully appreciate that your bass might need to be done, and also that connectivity in regional Australia may not afford you to leave your videos on. We are going to have a good couple of hours together. I am just so incredibly excited to have the number of people that we have registered, which is really suggesting the appetite for you as farm business owners to really work on your businesses, which for us as consultants in this space, we are so incredibly proud of. We are going to try where we can to make the session interactive. There's going to be times where we'll take a break and we will offer a couple of minutes to collect your thoughts. So anyone who has done anything with me in the past knows that not only could I talk non-stop for 2 hours via Zoom, I could do it with a mouthful of marbles underwater, and I could go beyond the 2 hours. That being said, your ability to stay focused and listen for that long may not parallel my specialisation in talking. So what we'll do is we'll collect our thoughts periodically, and we'll take some time to document and make some notes of how you can take the chalk and talk that we present to you today and put it into action in your business. We are recording this session. There might be something that you want to watch a bit later on if you want to challenge yourself to sit through it again, but also for those of you who may have registered and might be watching this after the fact. We are happy to stay online after the session for any further discussion, acknowledging that we have a bulk of content to get through. One thing we are going to very excitedly talk about at the end of the session is the opportunity for a little bit of coaching that we are offering. And I'm going to say, we thought it would have been to everyone. When you have 122 registrations, it's not going to be to everyone. It's going to be for the keen beans who come on board with us, do a little bit of homework, and then put yourself forward. Be brave enough to put yourself forward to talk to either me or one of my team. I'm going to talk about those legends in a moment. A tiny little bit about me. My name, as Margot said, is Beck Fing. I have maintained House Paddock Training and Consulting since its inception in 2004. So that makes the business and me a little bit long in the tooth. The overall, I guess, goal of House Paddock is to professionalise farming businesses. So that sounds quite generic, but it's something that we feel we can really work towards as a business goal and to keep us in our lane. What that looks like is provision of support in business strategy and planning, like we're talking about today, but also we love talking about work health and safety in HR and do that very often. And more recently, we talk a lot about personal effectiveness and managing yourself, because what we were realizing is that people couldn't manage a business until they had that ability to manage themselves. So we also enjoy helping people manage themselves so they can go forward and manage others and manage their business. There's some numbers there. We've been doing this for a long time. I used to say that we have helped businesses from Claremont to the Adelaide Hills, until a fortnight ago I found myself for the first time ever in the Northern Territory. So now I can say that I've helped farming businesses from Adelaide River to the Adelaide Hills, but it doesn't really have the same ring to it. Anyway, I could talk about that trip till I'm blue in the face. First ever cotton operation that was BMP accredited happened in the last week. You'll hopefully read about it in the paper because it's a pretty impressive operation. Not what we're here to talk about. I also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce a couple of other people who you may come across if you take up the opportunity of some coaching. So Dr. Libby Rosner is based up in sunny Hervey Bay after a long time down in the Condobolin region. And Lib is co-founder of the Virtual Kui, which is a very clever online opportunity for you to access some virtual assistants, but also has a whole suite of skills in basically farm business operation and management. So when I crossed paths with Libby, I was so incredibly excited to beg her, if she might consider dabbling as part of the House Paddock team. Anyone who's been around House Paddock for a while will also know of Heidi Smith, who's one of our senior project managers. She's an apology, so I really wanted to say in this intro that she likes long walks on the beach and bush poetry. It's not true, but she's also a little mentor and motivator that we love hanging out with, and we find her really inspiring too. So in the instance you go down the path of choosing to hang out with us, after this, it'll be either myself, Libby, or Heidi that you will have the great fortune of running across. What I want to do though is just pause for a moment, and I want to know a little bit about you. So as at now, we have 53 people that have dialed in, which is a pretty good result for a webinar, especially because a lot of times we register either to make the presenter feel good. I hope thanks to anyone who had no intentions of dialing in, and that's sort of what you did, but also with great intentions. So to have half of our audience that have dialed in live is pretty cool. What I'd love you to do though, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to make an assumption that everyone knows their way around Zoom well enough to navigate to the chat box, which is in the toolbar at the top. And I am really keen, someone's already done it, thank you Jamie. Maybe the chat box has now popped up because Jamie has answered half the questions in that box. I'm really keen to know where you're from, what industry you're in, but also why did you dial in? One word's fine, goals, I don't know, values, planning, reboot, recalibrate, all of those words, and to learn. Awesome, Jamie. That's a really good place to start is to learn. And we'll talk about learning and skills throughout the course of the session. Okay, so we've got 2 out of 54 participants. What a great strike rate. So clearly we're either slow typers or a reboot and some learning from Lisa Yorkston. Lisa, I'm pretty sure it'd be 15 years since our paths have crossed. Hi. Who else? Yeah, now they're coming through. I'm going to blame the connectivity more than the lack of interest in sharing while you're here. Always learning. Mel, always leaving house paddock wiser and more motivated. I love a good reboot. Bookkeeping and advisory in a reboot. Stacey Storia. Look, geez, everyone's quite good listeners here, aren't they? Okay, maybe they might do what we sort of tell them to do, Margot or Liv. What do you think? They might come on and, yeah, awesome. We are going to very excitedly keep a track of this. You know, the other reason why I've done this is because now I know you know where the chat box is, and now I know you're not afraid to use it. How good is this? Lots and lots of people that have joined there, and I'm going to try and regain some focus because all I want to do is read all of those beautiful suggestions. But awesome. Lots of opportunities. Hello, Ali Mudford, to be refreshed and motivated and go forward, which is what we're here to talk about, is moving forward and moving forward in the right lane and moving forward in your own lane. So that I'm hoping we will be able to present some content, little bits and bobs, tricks and tips. I'm going to say for a lot because there's a lot of familiar faces in the videos and names in that list. It may well be a recalibrate and a refresh. I might bring some information to the forefront of your consciousness that you may have passively or actively chosen to push to the back. Okay, so what I'm really keen to do is cover some of these areas as we go through the session. We are going to talk about clarity of direction. If you've done anything with me in the past, you'll know it's one of my favourite topics. So we need to know where we are going and what we are trying to achieve before we can start putting rubber on the road. And don't get me wrong, we're going to get to the point where we're going to put some rubber on that road, but where are we actually going and what frames up that road? With that, we're going to have a look at a little bit of a SWOT analysis for your business, what I would consider to be one of the most underutilized tools. We're going to talk about understanding and managing risk and the impact that has on your business planning. And then we're going to get in and talk about goal setting, about planning, a little bit about efficiency, but also as a business owner and manager, or maybe someone who's operating in someone else's lane, in someone else's business, how the hell we can get the job done. And then we're going to touch on where to from here. So without much further ado, I'm going to encourage you to spend the next couple of hours working on your business and rather than working in it. And as business owners and managers, and I know most people, everyone in the group is entrenched in agriculture, the availability of labour, if I pop my HR hat on for 2 minutes, is very significant. And to talk to someone this morning, a client, about business planning, they're like, mate, we are flat out getting the job done. There is no time to lift our head to the horizon and actually focus on where we're going. We're just knee deep in mud was about where it's at. So we fully get it. And back to that slide, a little bit like Margot and Libby in her past as well, we are involved in our family farming business. We are throat deep invested in that as well. So we do know the battles that you are facing. We also know the unique environment, which is farming, where our farms often double as our homes. We live and breathe what we do. A lot of the things we manage by way of risks, by way of determinants of our success, are completely out of our control. Does it make us crazy? Possibly. Does it make us incredibly passionate? Absolutely. But what it does make it is hard to actually work on your business because it is entrenched in history and legacy. There are often a lot of things that are done the way that they're always done, not because they're the right way, but just because that's the way it is. So if nothing else, I'd love to leave you today with maybe the encouragement and confidence to spend a little bit of time, partition a little bit of time to work on your business and give you a bit of structure on how to do that. We talk a lot about business and personal effectiveness, and really they have the same recipe. They have the same ingredients, they have the same steps, they have the same strategy. I mentioned clarity of direction. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as we go. What businesses that are effective also have is some really clear goals and understanding of what success looks like, not just to the business, but also the individuals in it. But also the next step is that strategy and that plan to get the job done. They often, and I say they, I'm talking about these businesses that we would consider to have their stuff in a heap. And I'm going to see how long I can go, Margot, before I say more than stuff in a heap, but that's okay. We'll get there. But those businesses that really do have their stuff in a heap, and businesses that we would consider to be on the straight and narrow. And if you can't see what I'm doing, I've got my arms up in a sort of a, they're not parallel, they're sort of slightly flared at the bottom, up to a point at the top. We're going to talk about what we need to do to stay on that straight and narrow, and what we can do as business owners and managers to put that structure and what we call those guide rails in place. The other thing is I'm a huge subscriber to systems creating success. So what sort of systems, platform structures can you put in place to create efficiencies, which gives you the opportunity to follow the strategy, is about where it's at. And then again, and Margot mentioned it earlier, was around creating that balance and making sure that every day is not a Wednesday, making sure when we are torn by our heart and our head, we make business decisions that are founded in business success. They're informed, they're educated, and they're not driven from a place of either lack of consideration, of panic, maybe of history and legacy, but they're the decisions that we should be making, the plan we should be following. I'm going to touch at the end, depending on how we go for time, but definitely touch quickly on mindset and execution, because it's one thing to have plans, and there's a lot of us, I'm sure, that have some great plans. There's a lot of us who set goals, and there's also some of us who fail to achieve them, and then you wonder why. Guess what, team? It's okay to have a goal. It's okay to create a plan and a strategy attached to that goal. The last kicker is to follow the damn plan, and I'm going to talk about how we can do that. So let's go back and have a think about what is it that your business is trying to achieve. And you may have heard through any business planning exercise that you've done in the past, what is your vision? What is your mission? What is your legacy? If you put yourself and your business, use the word self and business together, I appreciate they're very different, okay? But as primary producers, typically we put them in the same mix, because if our business is a success, we have that sense of personal fulfillment and achievement. Is that a pretty fair call? Okay. Yeah. So sometimes I'd love to pry them apart, but I also appreciate that we need to pop them back together. So we're going to talk about them in some instances separately and some instances together. Really hard to talk about balance in farming and working hours, but talking about goals for ourselves and goals for our business partners and goals for our business. But if you do think about your business, let's say 50 years down the track, let's go a bit sooner than that. Surely we can retire and steady down and retire to the coast before then, but let's go 20 years. And your business is up for sale and makes a feature ad in the Land. Ray White wants to put an ad in the Land about your business. What is it that it says? What is it that it says? What are the things? What are the describing words? What are the phrases? What reputation have you driven your business towards that someone who knows it quite superficially, maybe has broken bread around your table talking about selling the said business? What have they said? What is it that you have worn on your heart sleeve? What is it that you are known for? The reason we ask this up front is because it allows us to make sure we are laying rubber on the road, or bricks as we'll start calling them, on the road to get us to that point. And then we're going to also talk about, from a values perspective, authenticity, and whether or not the way we'd like our business described is the way we're conducting our business and the direction in which we're heading. You have a think about your vision and your mission and your legacy. These are the things that you offer, that you deliver for the business owners, maybe your clients, maybe your staff, maybe the community. Or is it that something, your vision is more so what your business looks like at some point in the future? Okay, when your mission is what it's delivering. I think those words are sometimes used interchangeably. Does it really matter? No, what I'd love you to do on the back of that slide alone is, and this one, is have a think about it. Have you ever mapped out, if your business is a success 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the track, what is it? Is it around sustainability? Is it around responsibility? Is it around financial success? Is it around size and scale and scope? Is it around the people and the human element? Is it around quality? Is it around output? Because sometimes some of these things, when you're making business decisions and business plans, don't necessarily go hand in hand. Maybe more of a product, irrespective of the industry, may decline the quality. So you might be focused on a more boutique market and you want to be known to be the best, not the biggest. Or do you want to be known to be the biggest, not the best? You see where I'm headed with this stuff? And until we have taken the time to actually have a think about what this looks like, it's really difficult to know where we're putting our resources. And I'm going to talk about resources more as we go. The next, I guess, part or layer of this conversation is our business values. And across the course of our dealings with our clients, it's interesting to see the variation in values within farming businesses that from the outset look very similar. So just by way of background, the values should typically be the scaffolding that holds your business together, but also will allow us to frame up and shape the decisions we make and our actions. Okay, so let's have a think about that. You think, wow, she's really gone off track here. No, I haven't. I'm gonna bring it all back together. If you have a think about your values, say for example, you listed your values as, say, let's go with one that's pretty easy to explain. Let's go loyalty. So if you listed a value of your business where you wanted to be known to be loyal, are you loyal? Do you operate in a loyal fashion? Do you use the same contractors? Do you go back to the same supplier or the same agent or the same rural merch store? Do you have consistent long-term relationships with your advisors? Because that is demonstrating and walking the walk that you are loyal, okay? Are you a business that wants to be known for quality? Is that to the point where you communicate to your team, to those who are giving advice, those who you might outsource to? We're going to talk about outsourcing shortly. But is it that then you say, hey, I don't mind if this costs a few extra bucks. I just want the job done well. Are you with me? Because if you want to be known for quality and then you employ a contractor that's known for cutting corners or buy a dodgy input because it's a bit cheaper, you're not necessarily walking the walk. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, and I reckon that if we opened up to the floor, and I wish that we were all sitting around in the classroom sipping tea, not classroom, workshop room, dodgy RSL in the back corners of regional New South Wales, we'd be able to share stories and examples of where our values have been maybe compromised, where you've made decisions and you go, you know what, I had that agent, but after a while I realised like we really like to operate with integrity, but he was happy to tell this buyer of our rams whatever he needed to tell him to buy them, to sell them. Does that make sense? So you might move on and sever that relationship and move on to someone who maintains a level of integrity. Keep in mind from a business perspective, and life, social as well, that conflict will arise when there's a misalignment of values. And then we find that we'll sometimes might employ people who don't share our values. You might, attention to detail might be a value that's important to your business, and you do employ a bloke that's a bit slapdash and a bit slap happy and cuts corners. Okay, my question there is, was the importance of that value communicated to that individual at the outset of employment. That's Beck Fing with HR hat on team, but it's pretty true, okay? But it might be, if you're in the market looking for a contractor, or it might be looking for an advisor, it might be looking for a team member, you might be looking for yourself a new friend, okay? At what point do your values play a role, and have you ever mapped them in your business? Okay, so have a think about what your values could well be, and understand the importance of them for maintaining authentic business relationships. And when I talk authentic relationships, I want to introduce this image that's on the screen now, and I hope that people can see it. If you're dialed in on the phone, I've put up what looks like a target, and the tiny circle in the middle is our values, and we move out and it looks at values underpinning your culture, which is your action, which is then your reputation. So if we go back to my original example about listing your business in the paper for sale, I'd hope that what you say about your business is the same thing that that agent said about your business, and not because he had spent enough time with you to actually get the inner workings of the business, because that's a reputation your business led with. And if you think about it, if we look at this from an individual perspective, the same can be said. If we get to our 80th birthday, what are the consistent words that are used in the speeches? Okay, and are they the words that you'd like to be known for? Are you fun? Are you generous? Are you hardworking? Are you community minded? Are you driven by productivity and profit at any cost? Okay, sometimes those 80th birthday speeches are really hard to write. You try and find something nice to say about the person. Okay, we usually talk about their involvement in other things other than their personal values and brands. The other thing in here is the alignment of your business values and those of your personal values. And we saw throughout the course of the drought where business and personal values were compromised. Let's go back to that example of loyalty, where we saw people who had bought, say, hay from the same business for 15 years, and through pressure, through fatigue, through lack of financial resources, they had to make a decision that was purely against their values, and they bought from someone else because it was a bit cheaper at the time. Okay, and that decision never sat well. Okay, I delivered this a session a little bit like this, a little bit different, actually still for Local Land Services in our Check Ready Grow series, Margot. It was a while ago now, so 4 or 5 years ago, in the grip of the drought, which is still so familiar to many of us. And I had a fellow came up at the end and he said, oh, this is all come true. I've had this real churn, this real sort of feeling that something wasn't quite right. And it was because through necessity, driven by fatigue and driven by financial hardship, that I'm looking at feedlotting some sheep. Which, you know, yeah, fair enough, fair call, pretty smart. Regen ag was his passion. So can you see that misalignment of values? And why he said, I never thought about it like that. Okay. So sometimes we do make decisions that are ill-aligned, misaligned, and just know that absolutely going forward we can get back on track, but in the meantime they're not going to sit well. I have, and I need to make sure everyone got a copy of this, because if you had registered, you should have received a copy of this presentation on email. Okay, maybe, Margot, can I be a bit cheeky and say, if someone, and I don't, we can amend it after, so just listen along. If you didn't receive a copy of this presentation on email from me, I downloaded, exported all the email addresses. Let us know, flick me an email or Margot an email, and we will get you a copy of this presentation after, so you can pull apart some of this stuff. Okay, the other thing is, if you didn't get an email from me at about 11:30, it means you're not going to get a follow-up email either. So we want your email address if you want to be stalked by me, only in the short term, okay? I've got better things to do than stalk people. Hey, Margot, I don't stalk people.
That's true.
Yeah, so we're really conscious. If you did not receive an email from me in the last hour, pop your chat, don't pop your email in chat because someone else will stalk you more than I will, but flick it through on a message to me or Margot. Both of our email addresses have been made very available throughout the course of this registration process, and we'll make sure that you are kept in the loop if you want. If you're happy to not get the presentation, never hear from us again, feel free to stay quiet. But also importantly is having a look, and this is a crazy list, but the other thing there's some really good differentiation between, say, cultural and community values and external values like environment, okay? Or community is a good external value versus those really interpersonal values like trust and loyalty and honesty and respect, okay? So all of these things, internal and external values, shape up the way you run your business. And you think, wow, I don't know if I dialed in for this airy-fairy stuff, did I? For me, you actually can't get the heavy duty rubber on the road right until we know what forms up our guide rails. And this is Beck Fing's roadmap, which if you have ever, the grow ladies are probably going, oh God, here she goes again with the roadmap, gouge my eye out. But this for me it's a real game changer, and it's a really nice pragmatic way to look at this stuff. So what we have done is we have put our vision and our mission at the forefront, okay? We have now put some guide rails in place. And if you were here to talk HR and work health and safety, guess what, team? I'd be using the same picture. Because if we'd like to achieve anything, we need these guide rails in place, of which things like the boundaries we set, our values, but then also if we get into the nitty gritty of our business, it is things like our budget. It is the policies and procedures. It's a code of conduct. It's a HR handbook. It's a planning session. It's your business plan that form up these guide rails. And those of you who can see me, I've taken my arms out from really wide, which is a similar image to that is on the screen, and I've pulled them in quite tightly, okay? And I'm going to challenge you now to have a think about a business that you consider to be on the straight and narrow, and not only do they have these guide rails in place, but they have them pretty tight. I'll tell you what else they've got is everyone in the business on the same path and going straight up the guts. Does that make sense? So first and foremost, where is your road going and what guide rails do you have in place? Maybe the easier question is, where are the gaps? Where, and I don't know, Margot, can you see my pointer? Can you see my pointer?
Yes, yes.
It was going a bit crazy, like it had epilepsy or something. So if you think about it, if you've got someone in your business that's out here, they're only out here because they're allowed to get out there. Where were the gaps? What caused the gap? Was a lack of an expectation that was set? Oh, they didn't have a position description. Oh, there wasn't actually information in the budget around that. Or there wasn't actually a procedure around that. Or we didn't communicate in our conversations from a values perspective that that attention to detail was critical, okay? And while we're talking about this, I'm going to overlay this for the rest of the session. We're going to put up here goals. We're going to talk about what balance looks like when you're not just paving one path, but we're also going to talk about laying bricks on this road. And you know, the other thing I want to put up front, or I guess the question I want to ask is a path that with the guide rails, if you will, out here, versus a path, and I hope everyone's seen me, my elbows, it like could not be more. If I was on a horse, my father would have slapped me by now. So tuck your elbows in, team. We're going to straighten the path. The bricks that are required to pave the path I have on the screen now versus the bricks that are required to pave a path where my elbows are pointing towards the horizon are very different. So when we talk about resources and planning, which is where I really come into mind and get real excited, okay, I'd rather be paving this road than this road. Does that make sense? So an effective business plan allows us to create this road. Is everyone still with me? Or have you thought that I've gone completely loopy? Libby, are you with me? Are you happy? You're happy with what I'm saying? Yeah, have I lost anyone? Margot, has there been a mass exodus? 36 minutes.
We're still strong. We're still focused.
Good job. 52 people. Don't start dropping out now. You'll give me a conscience. No, you won't. Okay. But can you see why I'm banging on about this stuff? Because we get so worried about the nitty gritty and we don't take our eyes off long enough to lift our head to the horizon and say, hey, what are we actually trying to achieve here? Okay. And the other thing is, often in business, we've got people laying bricks out here, team. So when I talk bricks, I need to clarify that a bit. I'm going to come back and talk about it, but I'm going to jump the gun and say bricks for me are the allocation of our resources. In business and life, we have 3 resources to offer. We have our time, we have our money, and we have our energy. We're going to talk about outsourcing, we're going to talk about delegation, we're going to talk about planning. At the end of the day, we only have a finite number of bricks we can allocate. I'd rather be allocating them on the straight and narrow than a wafty, windy road with no boundaries, no destination, no clarity, and no direction. Have I honed in on that enough that you're going, righto, crazy lady, moving on? Okay, I'm just flicking through here looking for some nods. I've got half of the photos up and then we flick to the black boxes. Anyway, I'm going to start. I'll pick on some people here in a minute. No, I won't. Don't be nervous. But I love that stuff because I think that it provides framework is where it's at. And we're going to talk about systems creating success. Okay, so let's change direction just slightly for a moment. And I want to talk about conducting a SWOT analysis on your business. Okay, after the workshop, we are going to send a little template for a business planning, for a business plan, of which a big part of it is a SWOT analysis. I believe it's one of the most underutilized tools that we actually have in business. Okay, so really pulling apart and understanding the strengths of your business. So what are the things you're currently doing well? Okay, we're not here to rest on our laurels, but let's acknowledge what you do have on offer. Okay, what are the things that separate you from your neighbour, from your competitor? Okay, if we're in broadacre farming, competition's an interesting thing. You would have heard me say possibly that we don't have a lot of competition in broadacre farming. Those of you who are dialed in from the hort industry, absolutely, competition is very real. Okay, but in broadacre farming, and mixed farming, let's talk grain production, pulse production, cotton production, irrigated agriculture, in that sense, beef, sheep, as much good quality product as we can put on the market, we can pretty much sell, hey? Okay. Also, the inputs that we're chasing for our business. So might be fertilizer, seed, chemical, animal health products, whatever, feed. You can usually get them. Is that fair? If you've got a little bit of loyalty to your supplier, a little bit of planning, you can usually get them. Okay, so there's not a lot of competition. I'll tell you where the competition is and why this stuff is really important as we go forward in business and professionalize our farming business. The competition is in attraction and retention of staff. Does that surprise anyone? No. So what we want to be doing is really acknowledging, and this is where let's talk tall poppy syndrome and not wanting to be seen as, suggesting that you're any better than the next. Actually understanding and communicating your strengths will give you an opportunity to position yourself in front of your competitors from a staff attraction perspective. Okay, so take that as, if you're looking to down the track to recruit, keep that in mind. I wish I could talk HR, but it's not what Margot's paying me to do, okay? So we're going to stick on track. Your strengths will really, your strengths will also, it might be the skills in your business might be a strength. Your strength might be your asset. It might be the integrity of your operation. It might be things like capital and technology. You'll have strengths in your business if you do that assessment. But also there'll be things that you can do better. So what are some of the things that are your weaknesses? And the coaching clients I'm working with at the moment, they had this big long list of weaknesses and I'm like, hang on. So they're not actually weaknesses. They're opportunities that haven't yet been materialized. And I know that's being polypositive, but sometimes it is. But it might be that your geographic limitation is a weakness of your business. It might be lack of diversity. But lack of diversity, is that a weakness or is it an opportunity to diversify? Okay, but it's about putting that filter on the operation. Okay, but having a think about what they look like. And then we can look at the opportunities. Where do they exist for your business? Are they low-hanging fruit or are they a little bit trickier for you to materialize? Do they require a significant investment of those resources? Do they require you to invest time or money or energy to make them happen? Things like underutilized markets, if you know, an opportunities where there might be particularly many competitors in your market, or an emerging opportunity for a product that you might have. It might be a bit of vertical integration or whatever it could be that will pose that opportunity for your business, but also changing the dialogue around your business, being authentic and true to your value and actually communicating that as such. There's some real opportunities there. And then we do in agriculture have a lot of threats that are completely removed and out of our control. Things like weather, we've got the markets, we've got political pressures. We do have that requirement for that social license to operate. And where we saw, say, for example, the live trade out of the Northern Territory absolutely shut down in an instant. So there are threats. Have we got foot and mouth in Indonesia? So we've got threats that are imposing on our industries at all times. We're going to go from here to talk about risks. So for me, managing threats is an opportunity through risk management. But when we do, after the session, send you the business planning template, I really challenge you to take the time to do a SWOT analysis of your business. Put 2 or 3 points in each box and have a look at it. Have a think about it. You might be surprised what comes out. The other thing, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun at all, but I want to tell you about is also attached to this said email that's going to come out is a farm fitness checklist that the team in the Farm Business Resilience Program have assembled. And geez, it's useful. And I'm not saying that all of the things they do aren't useful. This is particularly useful. And we downed tools with our coaching clients and said, hey, this is brilliant. Let's have a look at it. And it covers areas of your business. Margot, you might be able to help me. Like there's definitely people, there's your natural assets, there's your farming operation. I think one's risk, but it covers each area of your business quite discreetly with a bit of a traffic light situation. So where you might have looked at something like that in the past, it shows you, like, is this something that if you're all over that you're doing but could have some attention, or man, I didn't even realize we should be in this space, and provide you with a really quick, short, sharp, dirty, nasty, whatever you want to call it, action plan for your business. So it might be that you use it, and if you're interested in engaging with the coaches, it's a really good opportunity for you to say, geez, I didn't even think about this, and allow you to create that action plan for your business. So that's a really good tool that will be sent out. I don't know, well, look, we're allowed to send it out, so I don't know how readily available it is, Margot, or whether people might have seen it. Has anyone come across it in the past? You know, where has it been? I don't know. Anyway, it's real clever. Has anyone seen it?
We'll get it sent out. We'll get it shared around. No,
well, it'll come out, Margot. It's attached to my email because it's schmick. I use it with everyone. I love it. It's gonna, but anyway, it's a good little tool. And sometimes it's about understanding, locating, finding, and utilizing these tools for business planning. And when you don't know where to start, geez, it's a good place to start. What I would love to do is, we're 45 minutes into this session already. Can you believe it? Nearly halfway. I've got lots of things I want to keep talking about, but I just want to take 2 minutes, and I want you to jot down on a piece of paper, scrap piece of paper in front of you, one thing that I have talked about so far that you have under control. So let's bit of credit where it's due, but I'm also keen for you to drop down one thing, maybe 2, maybe 3 things that you go, you know what, I need to probably have a look at that. So I'm going to stop talking. It's hard, but I'm going to stop talking for like 30 seconds, no, 2 minutes. And I want you to do that. One thing that you've got under control and a couple of things you'd like to investigate further. And then we're going to come back and talk about risk management. Okay. Good job. Does anyone want to be brave enough to share one of their things? Just always start talking about risk management. Maybe. Deb's happy. That's good.
I'll go.
Okay, who's that?
It's me, Deb. I'm happy to share it. I've got nothing to lose, hide, everything to gain.
Yeah.
The one thing that we've got, well, that I've got going really well at the moment is a nice tight calving season. My breeding plan after 3 years has finally come into line, which is really, really cool, and I'm happy to see that.
Yeah.
The one thing is the way you described going up the guts of the path is I've got lots of gaps in my fences and I've got cows jumping out. So I need to bring them all back in together, with the cows being the family. So I need to sit down with them, and, you know, my kids are getting older, and I need to now find out what their goals are for the property, what their goals are. Do they want to take over, sort of look at getting everyone on that same path, and then maybe looking at some successional planning if that's, you know, the path we need to go down.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
so much good stuff in that. And look, talking about getting people back on the same path, sometimes that requires a bit of a wave of a white flag saying we're not just off track, we aren't even on the same road heading in the same direction, we're on different buses. And I'm going to suggest that in family farming businesses, that's not uncommon. And we will have a husband that may be a little bit nervous about retirement, what they're going to do, maybe getting old. And you'll have a wife that's really excited to see their grandchildren more often and maybe do a bit of overseas travel. So while you've got a wife dreaming about, you know, some time off farm, the husband buys the neighbour. So we actually see that stuff, and we giggle about it because and it does actually explain my family. But
it's odd because we're the opposite.
Yeah,
My husband wants to keep working, and I'm like, I'm just going to move to the farm on my own. We'll be fine.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Deb. So look, there's some good stuff in there. Getting people back on track is something that you can definitely take out of that message. So let's talk about risk management. So this is another, we're going to sort of put these layers together, if you will. So we talked a little bit about direction, a little bit. We're going to come back and talk about planning and the guide rails. The guide rails for me is, you know, workshop 862, where we talk about compliance and put that stuff there. So just keep in mind, go back to that thing and think, my guide rails, what are they? Their boundaries, their values, their policies, procedures, business plans, budgets, all of the things that the businesses that are on the straight and narrow have in place. And if you don't know what a business looks like that's on the straight and narrow, sign up and we'll give you a hand. But do you know what I mean? Like, you think, oh, why have they got it going on? And it mightn't be a farming business. It might be the local hardware store that employs the best operators in town. What do they do differently? They usually have systems and structure and people knowing what success looks like and everyone on the same page. Okay, fence is intact, cows in the paddock. Okay, if that's the way we're going to look at it, that we can look at it that way. We then talked about the value of adding another layer, which is the SWOT analysis. I now want to talk quite quickly, actually, because I want to punch in and talk about planning because it's my favourite, but talk about risk management. So one thing for sure is agriculture is a really unique environment because a lot of the risks are out of our control. And so we're looking to manage things that we don't have a lot of control over. And we saw through the drought, and we've seen through floods, where it's so interesting. They're talking equally about floods now as we are about droughts. This is, my head's got to shift direction. But wow, I'm a good deer and bandy girl. So we're gone from lack of crop for year on year to hoping to get a crop in because it's too wet. Anyway, risk management. What risks really impact your business? Do you know? And when I say that, my question is, well, the best way to determine this is, if you were to look at your business, have a think about operationally and strategically, what would shut it down? What would sit it on its tush? Okay, is it, then we can start talking about the types of risk. It would be that, it might be that your financial facility being pulled. It might be through exiting, if there is an individual that exits the business through choice or not, what would that shut your business down? Would a disease, an exotic disease, shut your business down? Would a hailstorm shut your business down? Okay, and then we can have a think about what we're going to do about it. But just to come back, knowing what impacts your business, map it out, map out your production cycle, map out your strategic plan, go, righty-o, what are the critical links in this chain? Okay, what are the things that would stop us driving up this road? Okay, have you considered them? What information did you use to consider them? Was it historical data? Was it hearsay? Was it your passion that allowed you to put your blinkers on to a particular risk because you're so keen on it that any which way you will close one eye and put your head on the side when you're looking at the numbers just to make it look the way you need it to look? Okay. But then the next part of risk management is what steps and processes are in place to manage your risk. So again, financial risk, these are the risks that we typically see impacting farming businesses. Production risk, market risk, again, out of our control. Client, really? That's where we can start talking forward selling and maybe diversity of commodities. So if one commodity is, there's a slump in the market, you can materialise a profit through another commodity. Is it climatic risk? This is where we start talking about storing feed, where we talk about irrigation, where we talk about diversification of geographic location. So you hope like hell that there isn't a drought from Mount Isa to Melbourne, which we have. Okay, we as agricultural industry have endured a lot of unprecedented times and conditions in the last decade. Okay, so it makes risk management really hard. And there's a really interesting appetite to risk management, which manifests through to the appetite for goal setting. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. We're probably going no point setting goals here. Okay, because it doesn't matter how hard I work, I don't necessarily have as much control as I need or would like. The security risk, that human risk, is there that nothing is documented and there's one person in the business that knows exactly what's happening, that if they were gone, you'd be in trouble. And it might be that, and we sometimes see it, a generalisation, absolutely, where there might be a female business partner that is across the administrative management of the business. So we're talking there insurances, access to banking, information that is, you know, around payroll. And then we might have a male business partner, and again, apologies for the generalisation, who is across the production topics. Okay, my family business, my dad, I reckon he'd know who we bank with. He's a really good operator, and I reckon that's where his knowledge of that stops. Would he be able to access the online banking? Absolutely, categorically not. So for me, that's a huge risk in our family business. Does that make sense? It's so pragmatic and simple. And I know it's not all about me. Sometimes it is. But are you with me? It's a good example because it happens all the time. Okay. Or it might be that so no one knows how water runs around the farm. No one knows how to, you know, from a machinery perspective. Okay. So how can you share and manage that risk? Regulatory and legal risks. So what legislative requirements are existing and imposed on your business? What compliance requirements do you have? And are you meeting them? Okay, we don't want someone externally shutting our business down because we're not meeting those. So the question then, and we could go back and put up a good old fashioned risk matrix, which is where we assess the severity of the risk and the regularity or the occurrence. And if something will absolutely put your business out of action and the likelihood of it happening is high, it's probably something we need to manage. We need to have a system and structure in place to make sure that that risk is mitigated. And what sort of impact do they have? Do they impact your productivity, your profitability, the sustainability of your business? Or is it longevity? Is it that it'll shut your business down on an instance? And the question then is around how are your actions and your decisions and the allocation of your resources impacted by those risks? Okay, what strategies can you put in place to mitigate them? Okay, and don't say insurance, because insurance is right down the list of strategies that you can put in place. And I'm going to talk again in a minute about risk appetite, because it's a really interesting one in farming. But a risk management process, and I'm just, today we only have the time, if you will, to talk about the what and the why. When the how, there's some really good risk management plans that you can access for free online. And I might see, Margaret, we might be able to even look up a risk management process through Farm Business Resilience Program, because this is stuff that, you know, from a business planning and resilience perspective, we do need to be actively understanding and managing our risks. But is there a process for methodically, systematically identifying the risks that impact your business, looking at the likelihood of them occurring, understanding how you will respond? And look, sometimes a risk will impact our business in such a way that we go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. I can promise you, if there is a plan in place, and this is me from a work health and safety perspective, if it is an emergency risk that you need to mitigate, if there is a plan in place, our ability to enable and enact a plan will be more likely if the plan exists. If there is no plan, we will more solidly stay in fight, flight, or freeze mode and be good for no one. We need the ability to go into autopilot in that golden hour, which a risk management plan will allow us to do. And then what we can do, if there is a high likelihood of a severe outcome, we can put some systems in place to deal with the consequences. Okay, we can put an irrigation system in, we can diversify, we can have some financial reserves. Okay, we can forward sell, all of those strategies. And look, there are 150 strategies I've just given you 4. And then there might be a little mix of insurance in play too, because from a risk management perspective, it can be a valuable tool. We also need to have an ongoing process of monitoring the effectiveness of that risk management and the approaches and the controls that are in place. So again, making sure we have those systems. We know what they are. We have the systems in place. We've got some records in place, or we're utilising data to measure before we manage, okay? And doing that without a pair of rose-coloured glasses is sometimes a tricky one. Understanding our obligations and opportunities, taking those weaknesses and threats out of our SWOT and turning them into working on them, building on them, improving them, materialising them so they become a strength and an opportunity, okay? And I'm going to say this about any sort of planning, whether it's a risk management plan or a goal, a strategic plan, or an operational plan which keeps you on the straight and narrow. There's one thing to have a plan. Follow the damn plan. Okay. And I love telling this story about a fellow that sat quietly in the front row of this strategic planning workshop, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I know that sounds dramatic, but talking to farmers about planning and goal setting and strategy in the middle of a drought on the Liverpool Plains. It was bloody terrible. Anyway, long story short, this fellow said, yeah, we've got plans, but you know, like you don't follow them, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, and he was sort of making some negative comments about there being no point. And he was quite despondent. And his wife sat quietly beside him and said, we had a plan. If we had followed the plan, we'd be in a better position than we are now. Okay. So a plan that you can materialize and live with after the fact is better than no plan at all. Okay. And look, it was one of those plans. If it gets to September, we'll sell our breeders. And we get to September and the solid plan becomes a line in the sand, which is shuffled forward, and we'll just buy one more load of hay. So, and we don't necessarily, I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to go into it, but it was just a really interesting comment, throwaway comment, that this lady said that they'd be better off had they followed the plan. And to talk to people, we did some work, bushfire recovery work with farmers on the north coast of New South Wales who were really dramatically impacted by bushfire. We're talking about emergency preparedness and planning. And a lady piped up and quietly said, if I didn't have an emergency plan, I would be dialed into that. So making sure that we, absolutely, have some confidence in planning and then sticking to the damn plan. I mentioned there's a couple of other kickers. There's always more to the story. We know this, but risk capacity and risk tolerance. So have a look at these terms if they don't mean anything to you today. Risk capacity is your ability, your business's ability to incur risk. If you are very heavily lent, if you are exposed and overstocked, it might be, whatever it could be. If you haven't sold a thing, if you haven't bought a thing, whatever it might be, it comes back to your business's ability to incur risk. And if your business has a strong risk capacity, it means that if something doesn't go your way, you'll be okay. Okay. But then if you have a low risk capacity, it means that you need all your ducks in a row and you need all of your plans to come off, which when we talk about the things that are in and out of our control, it's not necessarily a position we want to be in. The other kicker here is the individuals in your business and their risk tolerance. So this is where you may have yourself as business owner manager, you might have a business partner that you work with, father, son, mother, daughter, father, daughter, blah, 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 husband, wife, team, some siblings, might be business partners, and making sure that there is a level of agreement around the risk tolerance of the business, where you might have someone who is particularly risk tolerant and someone who's risk averse. So going out on a limb keeps someone awake and gives them cold sores. And for some people, going out on a limb is the only way you get ahead, and you behold the turtle because he only gets ahead when he sticks his neck out. And we see in farming businesses working with family units where there is sometimes a differentiation in the risk tolerance of the business partners. This can often be overcome through going back to your values, understanding what you're trying to achieve, and making sure you're on the same page through clear expectations, respect, and effective communication. Okay. And making sure that everyone is on the same bus. Trickier, easier said than done, trickier. Look, in the business planning template that we are going to send out, there's a little bit of a space for you to jot down some of the strategies that you may have in place or may want to investigate with our team around risk management. Okay, so if you've printed this out, you might want to take a couple of minutes to jot down some of those things. If you are keen on our coaching, you are going to have to put some things in that and send it back to us for us to see where we can have a chat to you about and to trigger that opportunity for that coaching. Any questions or comments at this point? How's everyone traveling? Do you think we should, it's 1:04, we've got an hour to go. Look, I'm not going to run over, but 4 minutes, come on. Let's take 3 minutes, leg stretch, message check, shift your physical body position, stand up, stretch, 5-star jumps if that's your thing, and sit back down, and we'll come in and we'll spend the next hour talking about goal setting and planning. Is 3 minutes long enough to boil a kettle, and do we need to boil a kettle? I'm thinking no. Okay. What do you reckon, Margot? Nah, I reckon we're okay. So let's come back. It's now 1:05, 1:08. We'll start again talking about goal setting. But if I really do challenge you to stand up and change your body position so you can change your energy and regroup, because an hour sitting listening to me, really no.
Too good. So back at 1:08.
Back at 1:08, Margot. You got a little kettle? You might be right. I'm drinking this morning's cold coffee, but I'm okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If anyone was making a cuppa, it'd want to be you want to boil 250 ml of water and no more, because you're we're going to back on. I'm just looking at my slides and I'm too excited to make a start on the next section, and I've got about 3 hours worth of content that I'm going to bulge into it for you. So I've got a couple of choices. I keep it brief, or I talk like an auctioneer, and I'm pretty good at both. So work with me here. No, we're going okay. Hey, goal setting. Look, it's a little bit like risk management. Agriculture has a really mixed appetite for goal setting. We have businesses that probably going to say there is no point. There's a lot of things here that are completely out of my control. I have no lot of control over the markets, the climate. I have no lot of control over legislative requirements. The biggest impactors of the success of my business and whether or not I reach my goal are out of my control. The flip side of that is we also work with a lot of farm business owners that do set goals. They do create a strategy. They might actually have a couple of alternate strategies. They have an understanding of the risks in their business, and they have put systems in place to manage and mitigate those. And as a result, there is value in setting goals and following the damn plan. So I want to talk about business goals, and I don't know if anyone wants to, let's take to the chat box if you're interested, and tell us if you do set business goals, and when and where. Are they an annual thing? Are they set with someone else? Are they set independently? Do you just have them in the background? Are they documented? Is it a formal process? Who's involved? Happy to hear via the chat box anyone who wants to share their personal story. If you would like me to convince you to set goals, hang around, I'll do that. But the other thing I'm interested here too is to add and differentiate here around personal and business goals. So quite often in farming businesses, when you do live and breathe your farming operation, sometimes personal goals are left to the side, rightly or wrongly so, especially if we see a situation where maybe one of the business partners has moved into the farming business from outside, and it could have been someone's, a family business, and there's someone that has maybe given up some of their goals to move into the business too. One thing we don't like seeing is where there is a misalignment between personal goals and business goals. So we're hoping, similar to your values, that your values and your goals are your personal and business goals, are aligned, and the things that you are trying to achieve personally. And this is where there can be some overlap in the balance conversation. So where we will sometimes give up lots of personal goals, especially goals that are external to our farming business, because our resources are exhausted by our farming business. So let me qualify what that means. Remember, I said our resources are time, money, and energy. So we'd love to do X, Y, and Z. It could be something that costs money, but it also could be something that takes some time. But at the moment, we're too entrenched here. We have to be really careful that sometimes we need to unplug the treadmill to get off it. Okay, so I appreciate that maybe we can talk about timing of goals, that maybe the timing's not right. But to say that the time is never right is almost an excuse to justify that lack of achieving. Yeah, we've got a few people that are talking about setting goals each year, each month. Good job. Working on some succession planning, not documented other than our budget. We have a goal that we set every 30 days and 9 days. I love it. And look, depending if you're a big picture person or more detail focused, if you're detail focused, short-term goals are going to be easier for you to set than big picture ones. Your big picture, you might have an overall overarching sort of goal, but then we need to make sure that when we come back to our roadmap, that the bricks are being laid efficiently and effectively. If you are one of the, I don't know, just let me have a look at my numbers here. So 45, 46 participants, 3 responded. Let's say you're one of the 42 that don't set goals, or just weren't brave enough to tell us you do. I'm going to convince you to set some. So what they do, whether it's business or personal, is give that really long-term vision. So remember we talked about our roadmap? They give us that opportunity to put some clarity of direction in place. But what they will do as well is, especially if we're finding ourselves in a bit of a fog or short of resources, they will allow us to organise our resources in a really focused fashion. Okay, what does that mean? It'll tell you where to put your bricks. Okay, it'll help you lay the bricks that you need to lay. I'm going to get onto that in a moment. They really are, from a business and personal perspective, the principal tool. Look, they sort of are the principal tool. I'm going to actually clarify that and say that it's the strategy and execution of the strategy, which is where the real goal comes from. But without having that goal to strategize and then to execute, while we may be utilising our resources effectively, it may not be as efficiently as we can. It'll also let us, and we're going to talk about skills acquisition in a moment, it'll allow us from a personal and business perspective to understand what skills we need to acquire. And you know what, team? It's two types of skills, and some of them we don't actually need. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, business owners and sometimes managers, but particularly business owners, one of the greatest downfalls in productivity I find with the people I work with is that of accountability. So if you think about it from a business ownership perspective, who is keeping you accountable? You probably think, maybe my bank manager. You know what? He cares if you make your payments. He doesn't really mind if you're reaching your full potential. He doesn't mind if you lack balance. He doesn't mind if you are reaching your personal and business goals. He couldn't give a continental. Okay? Accountability is a real issue. And if we have goals that we can then put some milestones in place and some timeframes around, we can actually hold ourselves accountable. And then we can talk about whether or not we're brave enough to communicate them. And then what it'll do is it allows us to direct business choices. Okay, so our goal is to build a herd or to fine tune a herd, whatever it might be. It will really allow you. It might be, around expansion of a farming area or upgrade of machinery and equipment or infrastructure, whatever it could be. Being known for something. If you set those goals, it'll allow you to develop that strategy, which I'm going to talk about now. So I have updated our little roadmap slightly. I've popped up here, goal. And I've then added down here that we're going to put some rubber on the road. I'm going to talk now about the 4 steps of setting goals and how we go about making sure that we can get the job done. So I'm going to talk about SMART goals in a moment. Most of you would have heard about them. Ever talked to me before, you definitely would have heard about them. But really, one thing that is most critical from the outset is making sure the goals are right. Okay, are they in line with your values? So this is where the sheep feedlot for the regen farmer was not the right goal. Do you know how hard it would have been for that fellow to spend time, money and energy on that goal? But if your goal is, it might be around, say, let's make it quite personal. It might be around regaining relationships with your family and balance, okay? If that sits strongly enough with you, you will allow and allocate the resources. I'm going to tell a really quick story here that's quite personal focused, like rather than business, but geez, it hits home. So it's a Churia Pitt, she's a bit of a legend, I'm sure you'll agree, and she was challenging this lady that she was interviewing on a podcast about setting goals that are in line with your values. And this woman, probably a bit like me, exercise wasn't really, didn't have time for that stuff. I want to talk about that later offline, I'm happy to. But it wasn't a real high priority for this lady. Anyway, and she said to this woman, do you think you could run an ultramarathon? And I'm telling this story quickly because it's worth popping in, but I don't want to waste a lot of time. And she said, no, I can't run an ultramarathon. And she said, well, hang on. If you got some training and you got had till Christmas, do you reckon you could do it? And she was like, nah. What about if I gave you $5 at the finish line? And this woman was like, nah. Which is a bit like the typical Fing response would have been to running an ultramarathon. And then Churia quietly said, what happens if I said, if you didn't run the ultramarathon, at Christmas time, you wouldn't see your family again? Dead silence. Then they started talking about the strategy. Do you reckon that lady would have found an excuse to miss a training session? Never. No. So in the meantime, she was wanting the joggers not to turn up and it to rain so she didn't have to do the training session. But I'm promising if that was me, and I'm very fortunate to be a mum, oh man, I would run through hell, wouldn't you? You'd never snooze your alarm. But all she did was align that goal to that woman's values, which was her value was family. Are you with me? Align your goals to your values, and the allocation of resources and the following of the damn plan will be so much easier. Okay. If you're really passionate about buying the neighbour and it's right and everyone's on the same page, missing the renovation or the overseas holiday or whatever it might be, or working those extra hours or running your contracting business for an extra year when really you'd like to get rid of it. When it's all in line with a goal that's aligned to your values, the allocation of resources towards that goal will become easier. Not easy, easier. Does that make sense? That's where we're going to head with this stuff. But make sure the goal's right is where I'm headed there. I'm not going to talk a lot about fallback plans and contingencies and optionality, because in farming, geez, it's tricky. You do need a bit of a fallback plan. You know, if we get 6 inches of rain, we'll do this. If we get 4 inches, we'll do this. Or we get none, we'll do this. But we've got to be careful that whatever those trigger points are within that optionality, we follow them. Okay, we can't just keep moving. If we get 6 inches by the end of May, well, we don't want any more rain. If it stays dry until the end of May, we'll plant this. We've got to follow the plan, okay? And make sure that that plan, you know, is the right plan. I just want to talk quickly about SMART goals. And I wish I could labour on this, but I can't. Specific, you know, improving production, not specific. Weight gain per day, specific. Tonnes per hectare, specific. Measurable, usually that is associated with a number. If we can't measure it, we usually can't manage it, okay? Is it attainable? And it depends, I'm going to say it depends where you are in your life, how ambitious we want to be, how hard do we want to dig? Okay, so is it that we set a goal that if we limp along, we'll get there? And maybe if you're in a period or phase of recovery and you want some quick wins, set really attainable goals. So you get that feeling and sense of fulfillment and achievement to kick the can down the road. Rebuild your resilience in your tank, okay? But it might be, you know what? We've been limping along here. Our risk tolerance we've absorbed a bit of that. Our risk capacity of our business is a lot higher. We could go out on a limb, okay? Let's invest pretty strongly in quite an ambitious goal, okay? So have a think about, I'm saying that attainable is something that that will change depending on your stage in business and your stage in life. And relevance will too. It could be a right goal, but it may not be right now. Okay, that's a tricky one. I'm going to say that as a mum, it's a tricky one. Okay, because there's things that are important to you and everything's right about it except the timing. And similarly, time, I'm going to talk about time again because I love talking about time, but time, if it does not have a deadline, I don't know about you, but it don't make my list. Okay, so what is the deadline and is it realistic? Step 2 is making sure we have a look at the action planning considerations that are associated with this. I'm going to talk quickly about all of these. Do you have the resources? I'm going to talk about some of these separately. I'm going to talk about skills, I'm going to talk about time and relationships separately. But if you think about your goals, is it bricks and mortar that you need? Is it money to invest in the goal? Okay. So outside of those things, if you don't have the resources, can you mount the resources? And if not, maybe that goal at this point isn't attainable. Okay, you might want to revisit it when your resources are in a different position or condition. Time. It's what we're going to spend the rest of this session really talking about, because we're talking about planning. But are your goals time bound? Okay, and is the timing right? I'm going to talk about relationships and delegation and outsourcing and all of these things, which all come back to buying time. Do you know? I'm going to talk about bricks, laying bricks and rubber on the road. I'm going to introduce some numbers, which I love, like 168, which I'm not going to ask because half the group have worked with me before. I know that that's the number of hours in the week. Okay, 1,008. Do you know what that number is? Number of 10-minute increments in the week. Okay, do you know that we can find time through finding efficiencies, and we can actually buy time by paying someone else to do the damn job. Okay, so there are times in our business where we buy time. We pay 25, 30, 35 apparently dollars an hour for someone to drive a piece of machinery or equipment for us. Okay, just buying time. Okay, sometimes we can have it all, but we don't have to do it all. And I'm going to talk about that from a goals perspective. And this relationships piece. So do you have someone that you can outsource the things that you either don't want to or can't do? And I'm talking here from a specialist position. So accountant, like financial delegation, into agronomic advice, into like veterinarian and nutrition advice, into a mechanic. Do you have the relationships in place to get your business to where that it needs to be? Which, if that's a profit or funding business, maybe some of those relationships are required to be in place. If your goal is to run an ultra marathon, it might be a trainer that you need. Okay, but then there's some other elements of this relationship dialogue as well. Do you have a cheer squad? Like, do you have someone who's in your corner? Do you have someone who's supporting you? Or do you have someone that at every point is undermining your goals? Okay, and I'm going to put the next one in as a little bit of a kicker, and I'm happy to be challenged on it. And I'm going to say here, do you have permission? So if it is that you work with someone other than yourself in your business and you're not completely autonomous, who do you need to check in on or with? Also, if it might be a personal goal, have you conferred with someone who the reallocation of resources will impact? What does that mean? If I want to study my master's or run an ultra marathon, probably more likely to study than the ultra marathon, I might want to check with my husband and say, hey, this is going to take me 4 hours a day. Is that okay? Or this is going to cost me 15 grand. Is that okay? And it's not about getting, can you imagine me getting permission from my husband? Unlikely. But what it is about having enough respect for the other people that are impacted by my allocation of resources to get the buy-in. Okay, so it might be permission, it might be buy-in. So please don't think I'm any sort of submissive versus bra burning. You know, you're with me, aren't you? You picking up what I'm putting down yet? I'm going to leave that one. But you know what I mean? It might be that you're working with your brother and you go, hey, I'd love to upgrade that piece of equipment. I reckon if you've had the conversation, you get it over the line better than you turning up with a new header. Okay?
And I think sometimes that's keeping everyone on the same page.
I love it. So true, Margot. So incredibly true. And you know what? If you would like one of your business values to be respect and maybe harmony, communication is going to be the biggest key. So you're exactly right. I love it. Just quickly, skills. 2 types of skills. Love talking about this. There's a whole hour in this. Soft and hard skills. Hard skills are the technical skills that we need to get the job done. It's our ability to build and operate a spreadsheet. It's it might be computer literacy. It might be knowledge of chemical application and machinery. It might be understanding how to carve out heifers. I don't know what skills you need to run your business. Okay, technical skills. If historically, if we need one, we either go to a course. These days might YouTube it, get someone to show you how to do it, then you practice. Hey, and guess what happens? You get better. Okay, so that's how you develop a hard skill. But then we have these other crazy things that are called soft skills, which are those inter and intrapersonal skills like dedication, motivation, communication, ability to listen, time management, organization, all of those good things. And funnily enough, we label ourselves in a certain way that we were born like that, and we don't have an appetite or even I'm not going to say interest, but usually we just assume that that's the way we are and that's the way it's going to be. I can promise you that a soft skill can be learnt just as tactically as a hard skill can be learnt. Do you know how you do it? You go to a course, you look at YouTube, you get someone to show you, and you practice it. And guess what? The person in the team who's a really crappy listener, if they learn the art of effective listening and then they practice listening effectively down the track, guess what they're going to be? A great listener. Okay. Similarly, if you have skills that you need to run your business, it might be around motivation and discipline. It might be around structure. It might be, I'm a crappy planner. It's a soft skill. Do you want to be a better planner? Learn how to plan. Okay, I'm not a great staff manager. I think it crosses over between soft and hard. I'm not a great communicator. Okay, do you want to be a better communicator? And I had a fellow in a workshop say, oh, come on, you can't expect us to change our personalities. You know what I said to him? No, but I expect you to change your behaviour if you are looking for different results to what you're currently getting. So the challenge from this piece is understanding both soft and hard skills. Do a SWOT analysis on yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And have a look. So a couple of things. Sometimes you don't need to acquire all of them yourself. You can outsource them. You might need to learn to drive a tractor, and I can demonstrate that. I've had the real privilege of working with some women just by default over a course of 10 years who are widows in their farming operation. They didn't know how to drop the oil out of a tractor, but they chose, with the passing of their husbands, to stay on these farming businesses. Geez, they do a good job, because you know what they do? They plan, they set some goals, they manage their business, and they surround themselves with people who can do the technical things they can't. Okay, so you can outsource the things that you don't necessarily want to acquire the skills for yourself. And sometimes we have a mentality in farming that you'd never ask someone to do something that you can't do yourself. Is that fair? I need to probably validate this, but I don't think the CEO of Qantas can fly a plane. Okay. Sometimes, anyway, let's leave it at that. I could keep talking about that, but let that sink in. The mentality of coming up through the ranks isn't necessarily the best. So, do you have them? Do you need them? Where can you get them? Hone your skills. Then I'm going to introduce this concept called reverse engineering. And keep in mind, I'm just giving you little snippets of information. You're like, geez, I'd love to do a skills audit myself. How do I do that? You hang out with us after, and we provide the support and coaching to do it. But that's there's not a box of steak knives, team. She's free. Margot's fixing up that bit. The next thing on the back of, and this is one of my favorites, is this introducing this topic of reverse engineering. So really it's taking those big picture dreams and it's turning it into today's to-do list by simply stepping down one step at a time and asking, how do you do that? I want to keep moving and show you this slide but the slide's really ugly. Hopefully you've got it up on your screen or you've been able to print it out, and it's a lot easier to read than what I'm going to show you because it's not pretty. And everything that I've learned about delivering content online or face-to-face is not in line with the next slide. But really, reverse engineering is that process of just simply taking a goal and asking, how do I do that, or what do I have to do? So drum roll, please. Anyway, yeah, everyone's gone like this. Okay, so lean on in, team. We're going to look at the epoxy slide. What we are going to look at is this process of taking, and I looked at an investment property for the purpose of the exercise. You could easily run an ultra marathon up there. Yes, Joanna's husband's like, I can't see. We all need to go to Specsavers after this. So we're really, all I've done is taken it from a big picture and kept asking. And if you have a look, say around understanding the finances of acquiring a property, I needed to sort my finances, getting a loan, increasing some income and getting a deposit. And then I was like talking about, well, how do I do that? Start saving. How do I do that? Reduce spending. How do I do that? Okay. All I've done is how do I do that? And eventually it gets to the point where it can become a one-off task or an ongoing thing on your daily, weekly or monthly task list. Okay. And this is starting to create the conversation. If we talk about our roadmap team, this here is the goal at the top of the page. And we could nearly, I know it's a bit tricky to look at, but here's our bricks that we're going to lay to reach that goal. Okay. I would love to talk about that a lot longer, but I just want to plant the seed that is how you're going to take your goal from something that's big picture into allowing you to create a strategy, which becomes step 4. Okay. So this is where we talk planning. So we've gone from our goal, we've looked at our action items, we've reverse engineered it, and then we're going to look at planning, okay? So people who are truly effective in life or business, plan. If you would like to achieve your goals, the critical point here is around planning. I added in here because we're talking to producers that seasonal planning is really important. And maybe I've actually, interestingly, from a farming perspective, I've ditched daily planning. We're going to talk about it though. But plan at an annual level, plan at a seasonal level, monthly level, and funnily enough, one plan influences the next plan. And I've introduced here this concept of 168. We have 168 hours available to us, either personally or professionally, combination of both, to get our job done. I'm going to talk about cross allocation of resources in a minute too. But again, this image pops its head up. If we're going to look at planning our year, some people plan annually. There's something cathartic about January. There's something a bit sleepy about the world in January. There's something about flicking the calendar, the paper-based calendar or whatever it might be, changing your diary and spending some time having a think about revisiting your vision, your mission, your longer term goals. But I also like at this point is having a look at what's working for you and what's not. What habits do you have in place that are working? Which ones do you need to ditch? What are your priorities? What changes need to be made? What systems and structure can you start putting in place? Okay. And I've been using a tool. I've been separating out our business with some coaching clients recently, looking at some of the aspects. And I know this isn't relevant to all businesses, but just to, from an annual planning perspective, what are the things that need to happen? And the next page down is the things that ideally will happen if resources permit. Okay. One thing I want to introduce here is the fact that this grey column ain't down the bottom if resources permit. We are going to, on an annual basis, I really encourage you to create plans and room and strategy for your personal goals and your family, relationships, the things that fill your cup. Okay, but is it that if you had a look at maybe animal health and husbandry, soil pasture cropping, infrastructure maintenance, machinery, business strategy and admin, there's not much that you can't sort of juggle into these topics. So from an annual perspective, maybe having a look at something like that it would be useful. Then, and I'm auctioneering through this a little bit, but I'm conscious that I didn't want to take anything out. So then we get down to our annual plan, this plan, and the seasonal plan, which is the kicker in the middle, it populating our monthly plan, okay? On a monthly basis, there are going to be things that happen every month, and there are going to be things that crop up, or things that are seasonal. So at the moment, we're planting, or weanings in a few months, or whatever it might look like, that are those critical, I guess, game-changing seasonal activities that we really can't be too flexible in. From a monthly planning perspective, we're going to talk about the value of a list shortly, but from a monthly planning perspective, I introduce here a master list. Okay, so if you aren't a list writer, please know that they are the principal tool of productivity and efficiency. But we also want our daily and weekly lists to be effective to the point where they can be achieved. So we get that feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment from them, at which point we create a master list. Then we use our master list to inform our week informs our day, but at a monthly level, what would you plan? I would definitely have a look at the big picture, any upcoming deadlines and any projects that need attention, any critical activities in the operation that need to be the focal point. But also, who's around, who's away, what resources do you need? We all know that, I reckon one of the few things that got COVID was Australia Post and the courier companies. So everything is taking a long time. There's nothing worse than stumbling on a requirement that you don't have, and we can't turn it around on a dime. You find out that the warehouse has been shut down. So having that bit of foresight, forward-thinking planning. Anyone, and I know there's a few in the group that would be using the Whitby-Watby process, so they're working on your business at a monthly level, working in your business templates at a weekly level, really clever tools to make sure things like the 6 Ps are covered off at a monthly level. And then operationally, we get into that weekly planning where all we've done is we've taken the annual plan, seasonal plan into the monthly plan. Righto, what are we doing this week? Hey team, what are we doing today? Then, and I don't mind it might be that then you split that annual planning, priority plan for the next 12 months. And it might be that they're one-off tasks, okay? And it might be that they're seasonal things, or they're things that have to happen monthly versus it might be that animal husbandry is important to you, probably is if you've got livestock. So weekly checks are here. And when we go to the next level, we're going to talk about who has to do this. So when we go having a think about monthly tasks that need to be done in any of these structured, funnily enough, you could even be having a weekend off. Could be cooking dinner 3 nights a week in your home. Then we go in and start talking about planning your week. I'm going through this stuff really quickly, for which if it's the first time you've heard it, it's going to be too quick. If you've heard it before, you're going to go, she says the same thing each time. Guess what? Because I've fine-tuned it, Joanna. And it's worth listening to, okay? There's lots of people in this group that have heard this either in the last 10 years or the last 10 months. Look, then funnily enough, we flick into planning your week, okay? Where we take those big picture items from your monthly plan into that week, okay? I'm a fan of where we can start looking at efficiencies here. We can do things like blocking like tasks where we take, this is where we have a shed day or a town day or an office day, okay? And we put ourselves in different modes of our business where we also make sure that each element of our business is touched on, okay? Should have introduced the C-suite at this point, but I can make a note to send that out too. But also blocking out time to achieve tasks and making sure we know what tasks. And again, we're going to talk about, look, we were doing this on Friday and it rained. We're doing this on Tuesday and the contractor didn't turn up. We're doing this on Wednesday. So I'm also understanding that we need to offer an element of flexibility in this plan, okay? But what I do know is that once we have a system and some structure, that affording that flexibility will still increase your productivity more than no plan at all, okay? Because it might just be that you can neatly start flicking some days around. Talked about task allocation. I love this process. This is really delving into that delegation outsourcing piece. It might be that you've got these one-off tasks, okay? And is it your responsibility? Is there a team member or is it someone completely separate? Are there things that are on your jobs list that really should be on someone else's? Okay. Or from an efficiency perspective, there's things that you're not dealing with. There's things in this column, this business admin and strategy. You aren't working on your business, which is probably worth $1,000 an hour to your business because you're too busy in a column that you could pay $25 an hour for someone to do. Does that make sense? This is where we need to shift our thinking and valuing working on our business as much as we do working in it, okay? Planning your day. This is where we start talking about engineering and creating efficiencies in your day. Knowing your prime time. If this is something that's of interest, Google your chronotype, okay? So that's where we know where our energy levels are at our best, if we're morning people, evening people, and where we create and design a day that allows us to work at our peak when we are at our peak and do the tasks that require us to think when we have the energy to do so, okay? Making sure, planning your day, irrespective, male, female, indifferent. We have different attitudes to writing lists. Blokes will typically come in at the end of the day. And this, again, I specialise in generalisations, okay? I hope they don't offend, but it does come from a place of listening to a lot of stories from a lot of people that I have known and love over the time. So here's a generalisation, and I hope that someone smiles at the end because it resonates with them. But blokes come at the end of the day, they ceremoniously write in a diary of what they achieved. Farming blokes, okay? That fair? And they file the diary, and they can usually go back and find that said diary 10, 15 years later maybe and find out the date that the pup was born and who it was sold to. Does that resonate with anyone? Has anyone got someone in their life that does or doesn't do that? Maybe. Anyway, that being said, I'm guessing that there's a lot of women that are dialed in that got up in the morning, wrote themselves a list, had about 24 hours worth of jobs on it. They then overcommitted themselves. Lots of other things ended up on the list, some of which they wrote on the bottom of the list just so they could cross it out and get a feeling of satisfaction. Then they look at it, feel like a failure, and throw the list in the bin. I can promise you when the bloke, again, the generalisation, when the bloke wrote in the diary, he's feeling pretty good about himself, about what a legend he was. He didn't focus on what he didn't do, focus on what he did. He wrote a to-done list. We've got someone, Joanna's husband here is in He's just off screen, but I can tell he's laughing because it's so bloody true. Don't be hiding behind there. Look, yeah, it is so true. Okay. Yep. I told you, I only need one of the 46 people to agree with me to bring it home, but that is so incredibly true. I'm guessing there's lots of others that don't have their video on that I can't pick on, but you little handsome couple there in the middle of my screen and you're going to cop it. But look, it's a reality. So I'm not saying women think like blokes, because then we'll all be perpetually unorganised and we just really pick up their pieces. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. I'm going to end up in strife here. I'm going to get the sack. That's okay. Hey, but write a damn list, okay? But keep it real, because we've got our master list, remember? So plan anything that you sort of want to do, but not today on a master list. Use your master list to populate your weekly list. Use your weekly list to populate your daily list. Don't overcommit. And then we're going to start putting strict systems and structure in place to create efficiency. And this is this real technical time management stuff that makes the planning happen. We do want to streamline some processes, which I think sometimes we reinvent the wheel every time we need a wheel to turn, okay? So put those strict structures and systems in place. Make sure we do have the right skills, or we've got someone who has the right skills. Don't try and be a jack of all trades. Okay, maybe you're better off planting your energy in an area where it is most well utilised and allowing someone else to stick in their lane. Let the tradie do the trade, okay? Also the right tools. What are you doing that's taking you way longer? What efficiencies can you put in place from an infrastructure perspective? Okay, it may take an investment of some time and money up front, but it will usually result in a reallocation of resources down the track. Okay, so you might need to spend a bit of money, but it's going to save you time. I was talking to a fellow about this, and he bought this sheep handler thing. I'm not a sheep expert, but anyway, he said that he's taken a man out of the job. He can do it with a dog, and it now is very straightforward. Don't get me wrong, significant investment, but reallocation of resources. You know that I've talked a lot about outsourcing and delegation, and that for me is one of the tickets for business owners to really grow and maintain and create efficiency in our businesses by making sure that we have the right people in the right jobs and are willing, is that the word? Willing to outsource and delegate tasks. It's a little bit of lingo around, by the time I teach someone, I might as well do it myself. If it's a repeatable task and can be done by someone below your pay scale, again, not meaning that to be arrogant, being real, chances are it's worth the investment of time to teach them. The other thing there is if there's someone in your business that's doing something that's not to the specification that you require, it's on you as much as it is on them. Teach them to do it properly. Okay, and then remind them, hey, Lib, you know, I asked you to do that report. I'm just going to get you to give it one more read over because there's some spelling mistakes. I probably should have said in the beginning that it needs to be print ready when I get it back. But did I say that in the beginning? And if not, it's not her fault. She sent me a draft report. Fair enough. Ask for a report. Are you with me? How strongly have you set those guide rails? Okay. Utilisation of technology, we do that relatively well. I think we can do it better, but also understanding and again, depending on the industry we're in, we talked about competition earlier. We do share resources, and there's also a little bit of reinventing the wheel that that goes on, but even from a business strategy perspective, and not particularly relevant for a lot, but where we don't have to start from scratch, I encourage you not to do so. I just want to add a little kicker in here, and I did talk about this earlier, is the value of communication, because we can have any sort of business plan, we have a risk management plan, we can have some goals, but usually communication is the key to executing the plan, especially when we aren't working autonomously. Who needs to know what the plans are? Who needs to know that you have some goals? Okay, and do the right people know? This can come back to the accountability piece, but also the cheer squad line as well. We can get that buy-in. Do you communicate with the people you should be communicating with by way of a check-in? And this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. At what point, if here is the roadmap, and again, I've got my arms up, I'm going to start waving my hands around like a crazy lady, but who is keeping people on track? And usually it's effective communication that does that. Okay, so you know when someone's off track, and you can say, no, that's not what I meant. We come back, or no, not this week. We can't afford that. We don't have the time. We don't have the money. Or hey, slight change of plan. I'll tell you what happens in a lot of farming businesses. There can be a complete change of plan, but it's not communicated. Okay, So a few nods and smiles there, because that's true too. So the other thing is, if expectations are clear and communication is effective, conflict will usually be mitigated. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. When expectations are clear, communication is effective, conflict will usually be mitigated. Okay, that is a webinar on its own, talking about conflict management. So making sure we can communicate really effective. And you know, the other thing to add here, people don't usually mind if they know. So taking some control over your schedule and your plan and your goals and saying, hey, really love to do that, but it won't be Tuesday. And they go, oh yeah, sure, what? No dramas. Okay, so communicate the plan. I want to start a bit of a wrap by talking about balance and prioritization. I'm going to come back to that slide, but first I want to put this one up and go, wow, this looks like little bodiless people. It's not, it's the bloody Fing roadmap repeated again and again and again across the page, because I wholeheartedly know we've got a few businesses. My husband and I have got some beautiful children. We would like to maintain a relationship, sort of do that sometimes. We like to maintain our domestic astuteness, do that sometimes. Why am I telling you this? Because we aren't usually on one road at any one time. We are usually concurrently cross-allocating our resources across a whole list of things. And it might be that some of them are in your business. Like it might be, you know, you're building your stock numbers again, and you're maintaining and repairing your farming country, and you're trying to upgrade your machinery and equipment. But imagine if we put, you know, a bit of health and well-being in here too, and effective relationships, and then there'll be lots in the group that have got community in here too, and commitments and family. You know, be stuffed if we put a bit of health and fitness. Are you with me? So you know what I like in this too, and we talk very famously about the Fing flying circus, but at the end of the day, this is a little bit like plates, and a plate's being acted in a circus. Okay, now you're thinking, wow, she's 2 hours deep and she's gone properly crazy. But if you think about it, in our life, we've often got lots of plates in the air, and sometimes you might have had a massive sprint. You put a sprint in a marathon of a goal. Like it might be that you might be drought recovery and everything has been focused on work, and you look over and your little family plate's a bit teetering. Or it might be that you've burnt the candle at both ends and your little health and fitness plate's a bit teetering. Or it might be like me, where you had January off and you come back and your little business plate's a bit teetering. Okay, so what I encourage you to do, first and foremost, ditch any plates that aren't in line with your values and aren't serving you. It takes a bit of bravery to do that. Okay, so ditch the plates that aren't serving you. Do not give resources to plates that really aren't changing your radar, that don't shift your dial, that don't give you a sense of fulfillment, achievement, and satisfaction in life or business. Okay, if that means leaving a committee, be brave enough at the next meeting to resign. But keep your eye on the plates that you do have in the air, and periodically there'll be some that are getting a bit teetery. Okay, and that's my favourite way, and the only way I know how to explain balance. It's about being real and acknowledging that there are times where all of our energy, all of our time, maybe all of our money goes into one plate. But how long can you continually spin or neglect a plate before it? Okay, what else did I write about balance? It is about that cross allocation of resources, but also it's around doing what's required, not what you want to do. Okay, so there's times where you're like, I hate that plate. Okay, that's my housekeeping plate. I hate that plate. You get to the point though, she needs a spin. Okay. Do I talk about mindset here? I'm really conscious we've got a few little, we're going to run out of time, and I could, you know what? I could keep doing another 2 hours. I'm joking, Margot. These people are going to die if I make them listen any longer. So I was going to give you 5 minutes here to, you know, really reflect and have a think about how you can improve your planning and efficiency. I'm sorry, team, but you're not getting any minutes, but have a think about that at the end. And this is where I do want to bring it home. So you really need to have a big, long, hard think about the why. What's it all for? Who are you doing it for? Okay, what's it all for and for when? Okay, is there time in your plan to kick your goals and make sure when you get there, the people who you want around you are still there and you still have the mental and physical well-being to enjoy it. Okay, because that's what I see time and time again in primary production, where people are living and breathing their farms, literally. You think, what is this all for? So I do ask you, and this will get a little bit deep, isn't it? We'll pick it back up in a minute. But in the meantime, if you do not plan in your business plan for your mental and physical well-being and your relationships, they will usually be the cost. Okay, so what is, and the other thing is your mindset and attitude working against you? I had a conversation about 12 months ago with the coaching client, and by the end of it, I thought, you are difficult to help. And she actually acknowledged it at the end. I said, do you want to be helped? Because everything, I said, oh, would you do that? No, I've tried that. Oh, I've tried that. No, that doesn't work for me. Nothing's going to work for you, sister. So are you your own worst enemy? The other thing, and I'd normally always have it in a slide, it's my favorite thing, and it's a really nice way to finish, is this concept of motivation. Throw it out with the bathwater. We are rarely motivated to do what we need to do. What we need to do is be disciplined. Okay, we need to make sure we have our vision and our mission. We're going to use our guide rails, have our goals, create our strategy, allow it to populate the plan, see where I'm headed here. Guess what, team? If that's all right, whether it's business or personal, you need to have the get up and go to follow the damn plan. Not because you're motivated to do so, because you're disciplined to do so. And that is the most powerful mindset, whether it's as an individual or a business owner, that you can have, is the discipline to follow the damn plan. Okay, I reckon that could be my catchphrase, follow the damn plan. It's pretty true, because people say, oh yeah, I write lists, but I don't follow them. It's like, oh great, do you achieve them? Einstein? Okay. Making it all work, making it all happen. We need clarity of direction. We need goals and expectations. We need planning, then we need our mindset and execution. I'm not going to, again, not going to give you 5 minutes to work on a couple of quick action items, because you're going to do that when we hang up in 6 minutes. Because in the meantime, I want to talk about wrapping this show up. I hope that you, the 46 people, not bad. We lost 8 people along the way. A couple of us messaged and said it was a connection issue. Oh, no. Or that they had other commitments. So some, you know, maybe they chose, and some the crazy lady got too much for them. But what we do want to do, and I want to put this little slide up now, and please, 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 please don't be the person that ignores this. I need you to pick up your phone. Oh, thank you. I'm watching you all take your phones up to the screen. Oh, legends. Oh, Margot, look. Oh, you're making us happy. So we have been very, very fortunate to be here through Local Land Services and the New South Wales DPI's Farm Business Resilience Program. And as a result, they'd like some feedback. I've got a really thick skin, so please be honest. I don't really, we don't expect you to pump my tyres. I do enough of that myself. You've probably got that by now. But what I want to do, I'm really conscious to leave that slide up for a bit longer. So we don't need, we live in the era of COVID. We don't need to tell people how to look at a QR code, do we? Camera on, splash, pretty easy, really basic. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to talk about the follow-up coaching and what that looks like to you. People are going to start dropping off real quick, going, if I run now, I won't have to talk to these crazy people again. Hey, we love helping people with this stuff. We have done this bit of a quick fire, boom, 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 across a whole range of topics today. I'm sure you'll agree. And you're probably thinking, oh, I wish she had talked for 30 minutes on that, or 30 minutes on that when I talked for 3. Well, guess what? As a result of this program, you have the privilege of a couple of hours hanging out with us. And everyone in my crew is as crazy as me. So don't be thinking that, you know, we all bring great value. We all love and breathe and live this stuff ourselves, with backgrounds in farming, interests in planning and goal setting and efficiency and productivity and all the good things that allow us to keep all of our plates in the air. I'm still not shifting that Slido QR code. I'm not going forward to the next slide. Margot, can you tell if anyone's been logging in there? We can't tell.
Yes, they're logging in.
Okay. Does any, oh, thank you. I don't know, lady in the red shirt, thank you, legend. But can I reckon I could take that slide down now, team? Everyone, yeah. Okay, I want to tell you how to do this. And I'm going to be really honest. We thought we'd get 30 people on the line and we didn't. We got 122. Okay, so we don't have the privilege of coaching every single business, but we do have the privilege of offering a bit of a first in, best dressed service. So after this, I'm going to wait for the recording to download. So don't jump the gun and think you've missed it. It'll be probably half an hour to an hour away. You are going to get an email. It's going to have a really basic business plan template. It's 4 pages. The personal information up front, we are interested in your business name and we want you to be a bona fide farmer. So we want you to be GST registered, okay? And you have to be based in New South Wales, okay? There are minimum requirements. But what we want you to do is we want you to use the time that has been allocated to us to give to you really effectively. So before you come to us, we want you to do a quick SWOT analysis and a quick risk management. It doesn't have to be detailed. It is not an assessment and only the A grade players go through. It's not how it works. But we do want you to have a bit of a go. If you send me back a blank form, I probably won't even contact you. I don't mean that to be disrespectful. We would love you to invest just long enough in this process to demonstrate out of the 122 businesses, you want to be one of this many that would like our coaching, okay? Given it's free and going to save you quite a few $100, the half an hour you spend on doing that business plan is your ticket, is going to save you a few $100. Is that pretty fair, Margot?
It is.
Yeah. So it's not a vetting process. It's not like, oh my God, she needs the most help, or oh my God, he's hard to help. It's if you come forward to us, and then we're going to talk about the things that you put in that business plan or beyond. You might go, hey, this balance stuff, she out of kilter here, or I need a bit of a hand, a little bit of intel around, I don't know, around risk management or planning, or I don't know how, will you step me through how to reverse engineer a goal? Okay. There's some action items at the bottom, pop some stuff in there, and it'll also allow us to come into the coaching conversations in the right mindset. Okay. We don't want to waste your time. So what we will do is we'll send you this email. It'll have the recording. It'll have the link to the farm fitness checklist. It's a cracker. Already said that. And the business planning template. If you respond with the business planning template, I sound like I'm in ED. I'm going to triage you and we'll assign you to one of our really clever coaches who then will make really quick contact and touch base. Needless to say, we are working in a government funding cycle, and we will get our coaching calls, couple of hours through quite quickly, starting as soon as the end of this week. Again, bit of a first in, best dress, and we would love the opportunity to have a chat further. Lib, have I covered that? Is that what we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I think you've got it right there. That's all good.
Yeah. So really, when we spoke at length with the team, when they offered us this opportunity to work with you all, they said, we said, what are we coaching? And they're like, you know what, whatever brings value to these businesses. So keep that in mind. If you would like to chat to us, whatever brings value to you, we will be able to talk through with you, step through with you, have a conversation with you. I think that's about it. I'm going to finish with, again, a thanks to the organisations that made this happen. Funnily enough, the time management lady sort of finished on time, but I want to hand back to Margot with any closing comments or the rest. I hope that everyone has done Slido. Margot, we should put that back up just in case. So in the meantime, I'm going to say thanks to the Future Drought Fund through New South Wales Government that has allowed us to be here, but over to Margot as a bit of a wrap.
Okay, thanks Beck. Thanks everyone for participating in the webinar today, and through the feedback that you put into the Slido survey, and even into the chats, the chat room that we've got happening. It helps us provide like workshops that suit your needs, because we would love to continue doing these sort of things, whether they're webinars or face-to-face workshops or whatever they are. Like we would love to continue doing these for you guys. So if we don't know, what you're looking for or what you're needing for your businesses, we can't provide them. So look, thank you so much for all of your feedback. Thank you so much, Beck, for being part of this farm business resilience program. It's been great working with you. Super excited about the amount of people that we've had on the webinar today, and look forward to doing this all again in the future, and getting some really interesting topics, or even continuing these conversations with Beck, so that she can really push us to set our goals and setting our goals and setting out, doing our lists and all of that type of thing, and achieving them. So look, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Beck, and look forward to catching up with you really soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and keep an eye out for your email if you want to hang out with us as a afterthought. We'll keep the momentum going and get the can kicked down the road. And thank you for the lovely comments. I am happy to stop the recording, and if anyone did want to has any questions, I don't mind. We'll stop the recording now, but if anyone wants to stay on the line and ask a question, we can do that now.